What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here, and I'm going to show you how I will be setting up my fantasy cruncher for tonight's showdown slate between the Steelers and the Colts. I'll be setting this up for the largest field GPPs, so there are some steps I would take here that I would not necessarily take if I were playing cash games or a smaller field GPP. Things like leaving a lot of salary on the table or playing, very unique players who might not be necessary in cash games. I might include them here because I'm playing the largest field GPP. While you're coming in, if you could, please hit the like button for this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, I'm going to start by adjusting my columns so I can see what I want to see in the middle of my screen. I have a quick view saved where I can see ownership projections, my projection, exposure cap, etc., right in the middle of my screen. Next thing I'm going to do is remove some players from the player pool here so that it'll be cleaner when I go in and make groups. I'm going to go into, I'm in all, I'm going to sort by projection. And I'm just going to get rid of anybody who has a projection of 0. So starting down here, Sam Ehlinger, just going to drag and remove all of these players with projections of 0 so that they don't show up when I'm making groups. All right, I think I got them all. Okay, then I'm going to go into the captain spot, and I'm going to set an exposure cap on players in the captain spot specifically. So in the exposure column, I'm going to edit this from 100% to a 20% exposure cap. That number is a moving target, but I think 20% seems fine for this game, not having done any crunches yet. All right, next I'm going to go into advanced options. And there are two tabs I'm going to be using here, the general tab and the groups tab. Starting in the general tab, unique players per lineup. If you're making 150 lineups, I would recommend leaving this at 1 unique player per lineup. So your lineups can be just 1 player apart. If you are making fewer lineups, say fewer than maybe 40 lineups, I would probably change this to 2 unique players per lineup just for the sake of diversifying your portfolio. Salary cap, I'm not going to set a minimum. I will set a maximum salary cap just for the purpose of avoiding the most duplicated lineups in the contest. If I'm lucky enough to win, which is very difficult to do on any showdown slate, no matter what your lineup is, it's very unlikely to win. If I win, I want to win a lot of money. I don't want to be duplicated 100 times, 200 times where I'm still not making a ton of money. I'd rather make lineups that when they hit are going to hit big. So I'm going to set salary cap here. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to leave 1,000 on the table. I adjust this by slate, sometimes more. I don't usually do less than this. This is probably the minimum for a large field GPP that I would leave on the table. Offensive players versus defense. The default is set to max of 2 players. I'm going to change this to 5 players. So I could potentially have some lineups that have 5 players from one offense against the defense of the opposing team. Seems counterintuitive. There's obviously some negative correlation there, but the field tries to avoid it, and it has worked out in the past. We've seen lineups that are an onslaught of one team against just the opposing defense. It can work out if one of the offenses totally sputters and their defense plays relatively well, has a few sacks, maybe a pick 6. So it can work out. So I'm just going to allow that. Probably not going to see it in a ton of my lineups anyway. Global exposure cap, I'm going to leave at 100%. As you saw, I already switched the captain exposure to 20% cap. Randomness, I'm going to set to 50%. I have been debating lowering this for the sake of making it easier to get to exposures that I like of different players easier. I'm thinking about doing it now. I might just do that now. I'm going to change from 50%. I'm just going to use 30% randomness because I do want a bit more control over my lineups, and the lower your randomness is, the more control you generally have over your lineups. So I think I'm actually going to set it to 30% here and probably continue doing that going forward. I think that 30% is also a good number if you're using classic randomness. Of course, if you want more control, set your randomness even lower than that. Minimum projection included in calculation, default is set to 3 fantasy points. So anybody with a projection lower than 3 fantasy points is not currently in my player pool. I think I'm going to leave it at 3 for now. If there are players who project for fewer than 3 fantasy points and I want them in my lineup, I will just give them a boost in projection to get them to 3 or greater. Players from each team max, the default is set to 5, so I could have 5 from one team against 1 from the other. I'm going to leave that at that. Guys, we have our biggest Cyber Monday deal ever for you. This is our way of saying thank you to the best DFS community in the world. Appreciate all of you supporting our shows, podcasts, articles. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. You can get a week of Stokastic Platinum for just $5. That's 90% off the weekly price of $39.95. Use promo code THANKS or click the link in the description to take advantage of this killer deal. Get access to everything: data, tools, all sports, lineup generator, World Cup projection, Slate Central, our 1v1 tool. So many things included in the package. And today is the last day of the deal, so take advantage now. And then I'll go in to make a couple groups. And the groups typically revolve around quarterbacks. There are a lot of different groups you can make, I should say. The groups that I am most concerned with revolve around quarterbacks because it's the one position that are basically mandatory. Guy like Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's a great example here. So I'm going to make this group Matt Ryan at captain. I'm going to make him my key player. And then I'm going to make the secondary group. So the reason I'm making this group, so this group revolves around only lineups that have Matt Ryan in the captain spot. And I'm going to add all of his pass catchers to a secondary group. The reason that this group is important is because Matt Ryan doesn't have virtually any rushing upside. He has rushed for 1 rushing touchdown this year. He rushes for something like 6 yards per game, just not a lot of rushing upside. So it's very unlikely for Matt Ryan to be the optimal captain without bringing along at least 1 pass catcher. Just because on every passing play, those pass catchers do outscore him. So with the lack of rushing upside, it'd be pretty difficult, for basically impossible, for Matt Ryan to be the optimal captain without bringing along 1 pass catcher. The one way it could happen is, if there are players that are not in the player pool that he's throwing touchdowns to, maybe one of these wide receivers gets hurt, somebody comes in who we were not projecting for anything. It could happen that he would be the optimal captain without any players, but very, very unlikely. And also fairly unlikely with Matt Ryan in particular to have fewer than 2 pass catchers. Again, due to the scoring dynamics, generally every passing play, Matt Ryan is being outscored by one of his receivers. If he's getting enough points that he's going to be the optimal captain, that would require putting up a high number of points. And if he's getting a lot of points, generally that means that at least 1 and probably 2, no, I should say at least 1 receiver is also getting, 1 pass catcher is also getting a lot of points. But if Matt Ryan is to outscore that pass catcher, he's probably going to need to spread the ball around a little bit. So generally with Matt Ryan at captain, I would prefer to have at least 2 pass catchers from the Colts elsewhere in the lineup. So there are a couple different ways to approach this. One way would be switching this to, if any key player used, then use at least 2 players from this group. So require multiple pass catchers with Matt Ryan in the captain spot. Another thing, the thing that I do most commonly in these situations is I leave it at 1, but then I give boost to the pass catchers so that I'm more likely to get to multiple. In a 150 set, I think that it's okay to have some lineups with Matt Ryan in the captain spot and just 1 pass catcher, again, because he has rushed for a rushing touchdown this year. So we know that it is in his bag of tricks. He also, weird things happen in the NFL. He could, they could drop a play where he's receiving a touchdown. It's unlikely, but there are ways for him to be the optimal captain with just 1 pass catcher. So within a 150 set, might be okay to have just 1. If you're making, 40 or fewer lineups, something like that, I would probably just change this to require at least 2 pass catchers. Also debatable here whether you should be including the running backs. I think I'm going to leave the running backs in here. I'm sort of debating whether I should. I think with requiring just 1 and then giving boosts, none of these running backs are all that active in the passing game. I think Jonathan Taylor has like 29 targets so far in the year. So, he could obviously score a receiving touchdown and be somebody that you want to have in the lineup with Matt Ryan at captain. But it's definitely debatable. You could consider leaving off the running backs for the Colts. But for a 150 set, I think I'm going to leave this at just require 1 player and then give boost to all these pass catchers. Again, I think you could consider, even in a 150 set, you could consider just changing it to require 2, because most likely, if Matt Ryan is the optimal captain, there will be multiple pass catchers from the Colts. Okay, so as you can see here, I just did a 12% boost on all of these pass catchers. I don't think any of them project so well that I'm concerned that I'm going to get to 100% of them in my Matt Ryan captain lineups by giving boosts. So I'm just giving them each a 12% boost. That's not a magical number. That's just usually a good starting place. I've found about 12%, so that I'll get to, I'm more likely to get them in the lineups, but I'm not going to get them into every single lineup with the quarterback. And then I adjust as I go after I've run some crunches. If I see I'm getting to 100% of, Michael Pittman might happen here. If I got to 100% of Michael Pittman in my Matt Ryan captain lineups, I'd come back and lower this number, maybe even get rid of the boost altogether if necessary. But I think this is generally a good starting place. So that's where I'm going to leave this group for now. Then I'm going to make a Pickens captain group, rename my Matt Ryan group. Okay. Oh, and I don't mean Pickens, I mean Pickett. I get those two mixed up all the time. Okay, I'm going to make a Kenny Pickett captain group. All right, so I'm going to come down here, find Kenny Pickett in the captain spot, make him my key player. And then same thing that I did with Matt Ryan. Now I'm going to add all of the Steelers pass catchers to a secondary group. And I think you probably should include Najee Harris here. He is pretty involved in the passing game. Oh, it looks like I got Jalen Warren in there. I think he's out. Okay. So Pickett has shown more rushing upside, and honestly pretty good rushing upside. He's already rushed for 3 touchdowns in 6 games started this year. He rushes for, over 20 yards per game at least. So he has shown mediocre, pretty rushing upside. Certainly more than Matt Ryan. He's not in the elite level, but he's shown some pretty good rushing upside. So I still think that with Kenny Pickett at captain, I am still going to require one pass catcher from this group. You don't necessarily need to, maybe he could spike a bigger week where he rushes for 50 yards and a touchdown and doesn't have to throw a ton and is still the optimal captain. But generally, I think it's more likely if Kenny Pickett is the optimal captain, he's got at least one pass catcher from the Steelers. I don't think you need to consider 2 with Kenny Pickett because he has shown enough rushing upside, but at least I'm going to require at least one with Kenny Pickett at captain. And then again, I'm going to give boost to all these pass catchers. So I'm more likely to get to multiple in some of these lineups. And we'll start with these numbers and see how it works out. All right, and then I'm going to make a group Matt Ryan in the flex. For this group, all right, I'm going to go find Matt Ryan in the flex. So at quarterback, Matt Ryan, make him my key player. And same thing as before, I'm going to add all of his pass catchers to a secondary group. Again, debating whether I think I'm going to leave out the running backs because I'm worried that I'm going to get to Jonathan Taylor in basically all of them instead of at least one primary pass catcher. So I think for this group, I'm just going to leave out the running backs. Just add all the receivers, tight ends. Okay, looks good. That's all I'm going to do for this group. I'm just going to say, if I've got Matt Ryan in the flex somewhere, I'm going to require at least one pass catcher, one wide receiver or tight end from the Colts elsewhere in the lineup. I'm missing somebody from this group. Paris Campbell at captain. Looks like I'm missing. All right, so I'm going to go find Paris Campbell at captain. Yep. Add him to that secondary group. Okay. Looks good. So now that's all I'm doing. I'm going to require, if I've got Matt Ryan in the lineup in the flex spot, I'm going to have at least one wide receiver or tight end somewhere in the lineup, either in the flex spot or in the captain spot. I think that makes sense for Matt Ryan. He's just not going to be optimal. Most likely, it's unlikely for Matt Ryan to be optimal, even in the flex, without bringing along at least one pass catcher. So I'm going to require that. And then the interesting thing is with Kenny Pickett, you could consider not making a Kenny Pickett flex group at all. I think that there is the possibility that Kenny Pickett could be optimal in the flex without bringing anybody along with him, because he does have, as I said, he could rush. He could spike up a week where he's rushing for 50 yards and a touchdown in a low scoring game. With that plus just a minimum amount of throwing, he might be optimal. So I think that there is a possibility for Pickett to be optimal in the flex without any pass catchers from the Steelers. So I think what I'm going to do is make a group where I'm not requiring anybody when I have Pickett in the flex, but maybe giving them a little boost. All right, Pickett in the flex, making my key player. And then again, I'm going to add all these Steelers pass catchers to the secondary group. I think I'm going to include Najee in this one. And then also in the captain spot, okay, that looks good. All right, so this group, I think I'm not going to necessarily require any pass catchers from the Steelers in this group. I'm just going to say only apply plus minus adjustments and just give slight boosts to these pass catchers to make it more likely I get them in the lineup without actually requiring them. All right, I think that is good enough. I'm going to see what the lineups look like. I might change my mind. I might come back and just require one pass catcher in lineups with Pickett in the flex. But for now, I'm just going to try leaving it this and see what the lineups look like. Because again, in a 150 set, if I got to a few, I think that would not be the end of the world. He has shown some rushing upside. Okay. Now I'm going to crunch out 150 lineups, see what they look like. Interesting. Okay. So first, I'm going to be looking at some correlations here. Just make sure the lineups correlate pretty well. Correlate well enough that I think that they have a shot at winning. First one I see here, Kenny Pickett and captain with 3 pass catching options. Looks good. Matt Ryan in the flex with 1 pass catching option. That looks good as well. That all correlates well. Jonathan Taylor with the Colts defense. I didn't do anything to make this correlation happen, but there is some positive correlation there. And then we've got Kenny Pickett in the flex with 2 primary pass catchers and then also a running back. I think that looks good. Now I am wondering though, so I'm seeing we got Najee, Johnson, and Gunner all in this lineup. Did I should I remove the boost? Am I giving too much boost? I'm going to end up with a ton of Steelers in lineups with Kenny Pickett. I have some concern there, but it's something I'm going to monitor as I look at my lineups. Kenny Pickett here with, okay, now he's just got Najee and Pat Freiermuth, so that looks good. Jonathan Taylor doesn't need to correlate with anybody. That lineup looks good to me. Okay. Deontay Johnson in the captain spot. We've got Kenny Pickett in the lineup. Obviously, positive correlation there. This is a lineup that I could group out a little bit. I have some concern. You look at this, you see, okay, we've got Deontay Johnson in the captain spot. What does he need to do to be the optimal captain? He needs to put up a lot of fantasy points, which probably requires getting a good amount of volume for the Steelers. So I like having Deontay Johnson. I don't mind having Kenny Pickett in the lineup. There's obviously positive correlation there, but then there's negative correlation with multiple pass catchers in the flex. So, in this lineup, I'm assuming Deontay Johnson is going to get a good share of the targets. So it's kind of negatively correlated to have two other players in the lineup who are only going to score fantasy points receiving the ball, plus Najee Harris. It's a little bit much. So you could go in and group it out and say, if you have a Steelers pass catcher in the captain spot, at most one other Steelers pass catcher in the lineup, or give negative boost to those pass catchers. Because here we've got, I probably would not include Najee Harris in that group because he obviously can score multiple ways, but it is a bit much here to have Deontay Johnson with multiple pass catchers. So you could consider grouping this out, say no more than one Steelers pass catcher elsewhere in the lineup, or give negative boosts. I think in a 150 set, I'd be more inclined to give negative boosts. If you're making 20, 40 lineups, something like that, I'd be more inclined to say just don't even include more than one pass catcher elsewhere in the lineup from the Steelers if I have a Steelers pass catcher in the captain spot. This lineup looks like it correlates well. Pat Freiermuth, we've got Kenny Pickett in the flex, and no other primary pass catchers. We do have Najee in there, but again, not he can score a lot of different ways. All right, so here is a lineup that I also might have some concern with. Matt Ryan in the captain spot with just Michael Pittman. Again, it's a little bit of a thin play just because Matt Ryan has so little rushing upside. If it's just Michael Pittman in the lineup, I mean, if he's scored enough points to be optimal captain, he's obviously going to be throwing some touchdowns. If they all go to Michael Pittman, it's going to be tough to have just one pass catcher from the Colts elsewhere in this lineup. So I'd think about it. If I saw too much of this, I wouldn't want it. I did think about just saying require two pass catchers from the Colts. Again, if you're playing 40 or fewer lineups, I think I would just do that. Just say if you have Matt Ryan the captain, require multiple Colts pass catchers. That's not what I would do in a 150 set necessarily. But if I see too many lineups like this, I probably will just come back and do that because I do have that preference. If I have Matt Ryan in the captain spot, I want to have multiple lineups, multiple receivers from the Colts elsewhere in the lineup. Here's another one just like that. Same thing. Matt Ryan in the captain, Michael Pittman in the flex. All right. Kenny Pickett in the captain here with multiple pass catchers. Again, I don't mind this at all. This correlates a lot better with the quarterback in the captain spot and several different pass catching options. That makes a lot more sense than a pass catching option in the captain spot and then multiple pass catching options also in the flex. Guys, we have our biggest Cyber Monday deal ever for you. This is our way of saying thank you to the best DFS community in the world. Appreciate all of you supporting our shows, podcasts, articles. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. You can get a week of Stokastic Platinum for just $5. That's 90% off the weekly price of $39.95. Use promo code THANKS or click the link in the description to take advantage of this killer deal. Get access to everything: data, tools, all sports, lineup generator, World Cup projections, Slate Central, our 1v1 tool. So many things included in the package. And today is the last day of the deal, so take advantage now. I think these both look good. Pittman captain, and then 5 Steelers, I think, is fine. I think this one looks fine, except again, we see Pat Freiermuth in the captain, and then 1, 2 pass catchers in the flex plus Najee Harris. It's just it's asking a lot for Pat Freiermuth to put up enough fantasy points to be the optimal captain, while 3 other offensive skill players are putting up enough fantasy points to make it into the flex. But I think it is possible. All right, here's another one. Ryan at captain, Michael Pittman in the flex. Starting to have some concern that I'm just seeing too many of those lineups. Here's another one. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go group this out. Just gonna say, if I have Matt Ryan at captain, use at least 2, and then I'm gonna get rid of some of these boosts. And because I am getting to too much Michael Pittman, at the very least, I want to lower that boost. I'll leave it at this for now. I actually want to look and see if that is how much I'm getting there. So in this last crunch, before I made that change, in my Matt Ryan at captain lineups, yeah, I have 83% Michael Pittman in those lineups. That might be fine. 100% might be fine. You might be okay with that. I don't think that that's what I want. I don't think I want 83% Michael Pittman in my Matt Ryan captain lineups. So I'm going to lower that boost, but require 2 now. And then I'm going to crunch again. And one thing you can see here is I got less of Matt Ryan a captain because now I've made it more restrictive. Now I'm adding restrictions to those Matt Ryan at captain lineups. So because I've added the restriction of requiring 2 pass catchers from the Colts, I'm getting to fewer Matt Ryan lineups. That's not a surprise to see that. All right, now just looking through these. Again, seeing Deontay Johnson with 1, 2, plus Najee Harris might be something I would consider grouping out. Here's another one, Freiermuth with 1, 2, plus Najee. See, going this way, I don't mind this. When I have Michael Pittman in the captain, Matt Ryan in the flex, this works out if Michael Pittman is getting a large volume of the passing game for the Colts. It works better with the wide receiver and the captain and the quarterback at the flex. Oh, and you can see here. So here's another example of, so I've got Matt Ryan in the captain spot with multiple pass catchers, but that includes Jonathan Taylor, who's kind of thin as a pass catcher because he only, gets about 3 targets per game, something like that. I think that it's okay because Jonathan Taylor is, he will have some opportunities through the air. I just don't want to see it a ton where he is one of just 2 pass catchers here. Here we are still running into a lot of this. So I might consider now going in, making a new group, because we're seeing it from the Steelers in particular, where I say, all right, Steelers in the captain spot, Steelers pass catchers. If I've got Deontay, Pickens, Freiermuth, all right, that's good enough. All the primary pass catching options. Maybe even want to include Najee in this group. And then go find those same players in the flex. And then I could either say, if any key player used, then use at least 1 player from this group. You could say at most, not at least, use at most 2 players from this group. Oh, and I did not include Najee. Maybe I should in that secondary group. So I could say if you're using any of these pass catchers, then use at most 1 player from this group, or maybe I'll do at most 2. I think I've been running into 3 with Najee included. I think maybe I could set this at most 2. I could also just consider only applying plus minus adjustments and giving negative boosts here. That's maybe the better approach in a 150 set. I think that it's probably okay, though, to just say at most 2. I think that's what I'll do for now. And then crunch again. So you can see here we've got Gunner, can't pronounce that last name, Gunner in the captain spot with now at most 2 pass catching options from the Steelers in the flex. Feel a little bit better about that than when I'm seeing 3 plus. So I think that these are starting to correlate pretty well. And then just the last step I do. So after I, see that my lineups correlate the way I want them to, I just go back tab by tab up here, position by position, and look at my exposures, how much I'm getting to different players, and whether I want more or less. Looks like I'm getting to 33% Matt Ryan in the flex, plus 13% in the captain spot. That's probably fine. And it looks like I'm getting to a good amount of Kenny Pickett. Probably okay with that. At running back, I'm just getting to Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris. Maybe I want some Deion Jackson, maybe Benny Snell, kind of interesting at 200 now with Jalen Warren out. I think I probably want some Benny Snell. He's at the very least the backup if Najee gets hurt, I think. And then, of course, he might just have some role in the offense, even if Najee doesn't get hurt. So maybe I want to make sure I'll set it at 3 for now. Make sure he's in the player pool. I'll sort by salary here. Deion Jackson, pretty expensive. Don't know how much I want of Deion Jackson, but he's under 8% owned. Maybe if you want some, give him a little bit of a boost. I should note I'm not actually going through and making these decisions right now. I'll be doing that tonight after inactives come out and after I have done a bit more research on the slate. I'm just kind of trying to show you my general process, which is looking at who I'm getting in my lineups, anybody who I might want to add to my lineups, and what do I need to do to get to some exposure of Benny Snell, Deion Jackson, maybe Zach Moss. What do I need to set their projections to get to some of them? And it's just kind of trial and error from here. I'm just looking at how much am I getting? How much do I want to get? What do I need to do to get more? I can see here I'm getting to 46% Deontay Johnson, 1.3% George Pickens. I think that is not something that I want to see. And I can also see that their salaries are fairly close. So if I wanted to get to about the same amount of each of them, I would set George Pickens pretty close, maybe 11.8 or something here for the projection, because that would be just a little bit lower than Deontay Johnson. With the salaries being a little bit lower than Deontay Johnson, that might make sense. Maybe I want a little bit less George Pickens than Deontay Johnson, though. Maybe I set this to 11. Paris Campbell getting to 10%. The field's getting to 25%. Maybe I want to get a little bit closer to the field. Could change this projection to a little bit higher. Alec Pierce, again, getting to 19%. The field's getting to 23%. I don't know how much I want exactly. Maybe I'd want a little bit more. Ashton Doolin, maybe he's a good contrarian play. I haven't really looked at it yet, but 6.3% projected ownership. Maybe I'd like to get on top of what the field is at. I could just set his projection to 3 to get him in the player pool, or maybe I want to get him. He's more expensive than Gunner. Maybe if I want to get to a little bit less than what I'm getting of Gunner, I'd set the projection about the same. Miles Boykin, maybe I want him in the player pool. And you can also see here that I'm getting to 39% of Gunner. I don't know that I want 39%. Maybe I will. After I've done research, maybe I'll see some trends that say that I should get there. But if I don't, I'm not going to do anything to his projection just yet, because I have given boost to other players. So now I'm more likely to get spread out across these other low-end options instead of getting to just all of the Gunner. All right, getting to a good amount of Freiermuth. Not getting to any other tight ends. Maybe that's fine. Maybe I want a little bit more. If I do want more, I'll have to give them some projection boosts. Gentry not even in my player pool currently. Maybe this is fine. 21% Chase McLaughlin. If I want more Matthew Wright, just get into that double digits, maybe give him a little boost. And then get into a good amount of the defenses. Now I'm probably going to get to less because I've adjusted other players, but I'm just going to crunch now. And again, this is just trial and error at this point, making small adjustments here and there until I get to the exposures that I want of different players. You can see since I've lowered my randomness to 30%, now the program is going a little bit slower. I've also been a little bit more restrictive in my groups, I guess. So that's also a factor, but using more randomness typically speeds up Fantasy Cruncher. And of course, having fewer restrictions also will generally go faster. Okay, defenses getting to double digits of each, not getting too much Matthew Wright at all. Maybe I'd go back and boost his projection, maybe even Chase McLaughlin, because I'm only getting 10%. Could consider boosting those. Still getting to 50% Muth. Still not getting to any Kyler Granson, Mo Alley Cox. Maybe I give these guys slight projections, slight boosts. Now starting to get some of the lower end guys. Still not getting to any Gentry. Maybe boost him as well. And you can see here my Gunner exposure has come down to 21% as I have spread it out across these other players because I've got them in my player pool. Now I'm getting to 15% George Pickens. I set this up so I get a little bit less than Deontay Johnson. He's a full fantasy point projected lower than Deontay Johnson at a pretty similar salary. So this is about what I was trying to do, get more than that 3% or whatever I was getting before, but still less of George Pickens than Deontay Johnson. Again, not making that decision now, just showing you my thought process. Now I'm getting to 21% Zach Moss. Probably don't need 21% Zach Moss. Probably lower his projection a little bit, or boost elsewhere if I want more of other players. And that's the entire process. Now it's just you can see here I've crunched throughout the weekend many times. Generally, I will crunch somewhere between 10 and 30 times, usually closer to 10. I usually don't have to crunch out 30 times before I get to exposures that I like, but it does happen from time to time where I just crunch until I get to exposures that I like of different players. And it's just a trial and error going through position by position, checking how much am I getting, changing projections very slightly. If you're newer to Fantasy Crunch, you might even consider not changing projections, but just giving thumbs up or thumbs down to get more or less of certain players. But that's all there is to it, making sure that the lineups correlate well enough, and then I'm getting exposures that I like. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and good luck tonight. Hope you can find some success using this or a similar process.